Hello and welcome to my new video, how to draw using one-point perspective. First draw a horizontal line and then draw a dot in the middle of this horizontal line. Next, draw two diagonal lines that meet at this dot or vanishing point. To make this into a railway track, draw a series of horizontal lines that get closer together as they go towards the vanishing point. Now draw two more diagonal lines from the vanishing point. This will be a road that is parallel to the railway track that we've just drawn. Next, we could draw another diagonal line just to the left of these two. Now on this new diagonal line, we need to draw a short vertical line which will be the near corner of a house that we can draw. Then from the top of this upright vertical line, we draw another diagonal line. Next, you could draw a triangle for the side of the roof and then a square below this for the side of the house. from the top of the triangle of the roof, we could draw another diagonal that goes towards the vanishing point, and this will be the top of the roof. And then to cut it short so it doesn't go on forever to the vanishing point, we need to copy the side of the triangle on the right and copy that angle for the back of the house, and then we'll get a roof that will work in 1-point perspective. Now to this house you could add a door and some windows maybe, and so the uprights of the door will be vertical and the uprights of the window will be vertical, and the diagonals will follow the diagonals that we've already got, again going towards this one vanishing point. For 1-point perspective you need one vanishing point, and all of the parallel lines need to go towards that one vanishing point. So now we have a horizon with a railway track going to the vanishing point, and then a road on the left also going towards the vanishing point, and a house in 1-point perspective as well, just a simple house. Now on the right hand side we've got some space, so I'll do 2 more diagonal lines going towards the vanishing point, and then the third one as well, and then on this third diagonal line on the right I'll put some upright verticals, and I might make these into lampposts or maybe trees. I'll make them into trees, and to do that we just need to find the top of one of the trees, the top of one of these vertical lines, and then to draw a line from this top base all the way to the vanishing point. And then just to make it easy for myself, I'll make all the trees the same height, but they're going away into perspective, into the distance, so I'll just need one diagonal line to cut them all off at the same height. And so the trees that we draw, they can be just very simple trees like a cypress tree or a poplar tree, and just keep them very, very simple so that they're really repeating the shapes, and therefore you'll get more of a hang of how 1-point perspective works by not overcomplicating things too much. So they're going to get smaller as they go away, because that's what perspective does. They're always going to go away towards the vanishing point, because that's where we're looking as the viewer to the drawing. We're looking towards the vanishing point, and all of the parallel lines which are in the environment that we're drawing are also going towards the vanishing point. So that makes it a very clear image to draw. Now for the railway track, we probably need to put in a bit more detail so that we can actually get the bars of metal going away into the distance, and then the wooden sleepers, or the sleepers of the railway track, being sort of brick-like shapes, wooden planks, which go away into the distance. And as they go away into the distance, they get smaller. And also, if you're using, like I am, a 4B pencil or a soft pencil, you could just press with the pencil slightly less as you go towards the vanishing point, and therefore the lines will be slightly darker in the foreground, and then by the midground and the background, the lines will be slightly paler, and that will help gain that sense of perspective as well as just using 1-point perspective. If you change the tone of the lines that you're using as well, it's just quite useful sometimes. So we could also think about maybe adding some tone to this drawing, some light and dark. So maybe if I was to do that, I might put the light source on the right hand side and have some shadows going off towards the left. But maybe before we do that, it's a bit empty on the left hand side around the house, so we could put some other things. So what we could do next, perhaps add a few more trees. Maybe we could put a little bush in here as well. Let's put a fence around this, and the fence, again, the top of the line of the fence and the bottom of the line of the fence will be going towards the vanishing point, unless it's horizontal, and then it will just be going straight, like the line of the horizon is straight. The horizontal line doesn't need to be a straight line like it's a desert or a diagram. Often the horizontal line, which is the height of the eye of the viewer of the image, that height is often obscured by hills or buildings or other things. So in this drawing we could just make a range of hills which are very far in the distance. With these 2 parallel lines on the right, rather than make them into a road, I think I'll make them into a little river, and I just need to have 2 curves that continually wind away towards the vanishing point, that don't sort of stretch out either left or right of these 2 diagonal lines, and that will more or less get you a river which is a bit straight but is also wavy. And then maybe I could put some reflections of the trees and the river, something like that. So I think with this avenue of trees, I could put a little path to the right hand side as well that goes behind the trees, and that will make the trees come forward because they've got something behind them, so therefore they're going to stand in front of the thing that's behind them. One point perspective is a very useful technique or device to use in a drawing to create some sense of a three-dimensional quality. Now, I would say that the actual, reality of the world is quite complex, and one point perspective makes things quite simple, but it also makes them quite readable as a three-dimensional quality on the two-dimensional surface. Welcome to my new video, how to draw in 2-point perspective. First we need to, and now we read across from the top of the left side of the building goes to the vanishing point on the right. At the point where these two lines cross of the road, draw a vertical line, and this will be the corner of our first building. From the top of this line we need to draw two more lines. One line to the left going to the vanishing point on the left, and another line to the right going to the vanishing point on the right. Next we draw two vertical lines to show where the left side of the building and where the right side of the building stop. And now we read across from the top of the left side of the building goes to the vanishing point on the right, and the top of the right side of the building goes to the vanishing point on the left. Now we have created our first building. From this point onwards, any parallel lines on the right side of this building go to the right vanishing point, and any parallel lines on the left hand side of this building go to the left vanishing point. In this drawing, each building is drawn a similar way to the first building, but there are a few differences. One is that if a building is behind another building, you only see part of it. But secondly, any building that goes above the horizon line, you're looking up to it, and any building that is below the horizon line, you're looking down to it. So for example, all the buildings below the horizon line, you can see the tops of the roofs, and all the buildings above the horizon line, you can't. I hope you enjoyed the rest of this video and that you have a go drawing too. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel for many more.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the second episode of the Perspective Drawing Tutorial series. In the last one we had taken a look at the basics, including the horizon line, vanishing points, and then a brief overview of 1, 2 and 3 point perspective. So we have so much to build on, but hopefully you are familiar with some aspects already because of that first episode. To give a quick overview, in this one we will be looking at constructing basic shapes and forms, looking at techniques to divide and multiply our dimensions, and then finally bringing everything together to produce a drawing. It's going to be a good one, so let's get into it. So last time we was mainly constructing cubes, and that's something which will follow through into all of these episodes and even in your drawings, because the cube is essentially a starting point to then construct and build other shapes. What you are seeing on screen is a simple arrangement of cubes, and our lines are directed to the vanishing points on the horizon line. Notice how I haven't drawn in these lines this time though, but they are still there and taken into consideration. I have estimated the convergence based on these lines, and that's because a lot of the time you'll find that your vanishing points will be away from the drawing surface, so it makes it impractical to create all of these construction lines. Working freehand and drafting in your lines like this might not be 100% accurate, but it gives a more loose feel and is a lot more convenient. So looking at this arrangement of cubes, we need to understand that all the lines which are parallel to each other will meet at one point on the horizon line, which is also our eye level. Also right now what we have here has the potential to be anything in a drawing. It could be the start of a streetscape, an object, or some framework for drawing anything in perspective. So if the form of a cube is so important, then what about the rest? Well, first of all, it's important to realise that every drawing is built from one or more of these forms: cubes, cylinders, spheres, and cones. Once we are familiar with how to construct these in perspective, then we are able to break down everything that we want to draw. Before we get into this, I want to give credit to some source material that helped me learn, and books that I'd recommend for anyone interested in learning perspective. Perspective Made Easy from Ernest Norling, How to Draw from Scott Robertson, and finally, Successful Drawing from Andrew Loomis. I'll go ahead and link all of these in the description. So let's start off by looking at how to divide and multiply our dimensions and forms in perspective. I'm going to start by drawing a rectangle. And although we should be thinking of these forms in a three-dimensional space, it's easier to understand these techniques from an orthographic view first before going into perspective. To find the centre point of the rectangle, simply connect opposite corners and create some diagonals. From here it's easy to divide the rectangle vertically and horizontally by bringing a line through that centre point. We could then take this further and repeat the same process with these subsections, and also use it to quarter and divide from there. Now let's look at this in perspective. On this example, we will naturally have our lines converging to the vanishing points. I'm going to choose a plane to divide and follow the same process, connecting the opposite corners, finding the centre point, and then using that to divide it in half.
sponsored by a student of the How to Draw Cars program named Mark, who's in the UK. And instead of having a private one-on-one session here, please thank him. Receive a supplement form to do after built a foundation, and I'm talking started. Cars sit on the ground. Draw the ground plane in, because that's going to connect the car to the world. Once I got my ground plane in, I'm going to draw my front wheel vertical, and then the halfway point up that vertical, and throw that line back, drawing from my shoulder to start to box in where my ellipses are going to go. So I've got my vertical, I'm eyeing up the size of my ellipse, and I'll draw it in. One motion, front wheel in place. Look back, put in another vertical. Now I should have measured off 3 wheels. If you stop the video and measure it, you'll see that there's 3 wheels between the 2 wheels. I did it visually, but when you're first starting out, you should draw those 3 wheels in between the 2 wheels in a very light way. Next thing I'm going to put in my axles. This is where the heart of my 2-point perspective lives. The ground plane line going back in space is going back towards one point, and those axles are going towards the other point on the horizon line. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to create basically 2 cylinders in space. I've got 1 cylinder in the front and 1 cylinder behind it, and out of those cylinders I'm going to create where my wheels sit in space. This is the scaffolding that I'm talking about. This is the structure underneath the surface of your car that gives your car a solidity and a 3-dimensionality on the page. So I start sectioning off these cylinders, and by doing that, I'm creating where my tires are going to land. So again, I'm working with very light lines. And I'm creating the box, the rectangle in space where my car is going to live. There's my rear wheel, my far rear wheel that I'm not really going to see once the drawing is done, but I know it's there and I know the perspective is correct. And this is key to building your structure. This is one of the secrets of how to draw a car in perspective and get it to look right. So if you stop right there and look, you'll see now all 4 wheels in space without any car body on it. So there's the back side of my rim. Again, another ellipse drawn in one motion. And my rear hub. And if you notice, if you set that line back in space right there, you'll see that all of that follows the 2-point perspective that I've set up. So even the wheels are following the same structural pattern, the same scaffolding that the rest of the car is going to follow. Okay, so we've built our scaffolding, we've built our structure, and we've built the structure for our wheels. Now I'm going to come in and hang the body on this structure. So I've got my sill coming back to my quarter, my lower quarter. And then I'm going to take the front part of my lower part of my fascia and wrap that around in space to the other side. See how that relationship is working there? And I draw that relationship around the surface from one side of the car to the other and around the back. So I'm seeing this thing in 3 dimensions in real time as I'm sketching it. So I find my touchdown of my A-pillar and I throw my belt line back in space. And automatically you could start to see the body side come into being. There's my A-pillar. Into my C-pillar. Now I've got my roof line. And I use that point and throw across the line from my cowl touchdown, my windshield touchdown, the cowl line, and my roof line. So as you can see, the volume of the car is really starting to take shape. I'll throw in my header, and then throw back the other side of the door to really start to create the volume that's going to be my interior. So there's the far side belt line, cowl touchdown, binnacle, my steering wheel, and the passenger seat. Again, all following that same short axis with a 2-point perspective. You start to create a volume inside the vehicle. You get a very three-dimensional quality, even though you're working on a two-dimensional space like a sheet of paper. Throw in some side mirrors. And again, where's the far side mirror? Directly across from the driver's side mirror. You can look through the car and you can see all those original structure lines that I put in, and all these elements that I'm adding all follow those same structure lines. Here's my center line, down my hood, and this becomes the section of my front end. Pass side fender. You can see I lean a little bit harder on the pencil there to create a much darker line. It's going to define the far edge of the vehicle. My windshield touchdown, and then try and add some sculptural surface elements to the hood. I can come back now and work the body side. There's this huge vent that comes off the area behind the front wheel, and then carrying that line through the fender line, through the door, and back around to the front end. Again, and that's where drawing from your shoulder allows you to make those lines, those sweeping lines through the surface of the car in one grand gesture when you need to. So now I'll put the Renault logo in and on the front end, and then throw one maybe on the center cap of the front wheel. And if you look through all the lines that create the body, you can still see the original structure. You can see the pass side wheel, and you can see the pass side front wheel and the pass side rear wheel. So all those original lines are still there, but now you can see the importance of making them very light, because they do recede into the background as you add more and more elements to the surface of the car. So that's why it's important to be able to control your line quality. No matter what material you're drawing with, even in a digital space,
пищевая цепочка. Это Оскар. Это Харчи, Поппи и Бак. Это Харчи, Поппи, это Бак. Муха. Это Оскар. Pesce e Poppi.